Do you love true ghost stories? Then you are in the right place. Well, hello, all of my spooky friends and my wonderful wild weirdos. Yeah, it's kind of a spooky day. It's raining. My hair's kind of spooky. It's always kind of spooky. Who we kidding? Scully is in a good mood. He loves rainy days. And I have a new ghost picture. Wait, wrong hand. I've got a new ghost picture behind Scully. I love it. And a little moon over here on the side. I'm trying to get in the mood. All right, let's look at some letters, emails that you all have sent me. These are going to be a little bit longer stories, but I can't wait to tell them. Okay, this one comes from Frederick James. Now, Mr. James, if you hear this, I am still going to try to schedule to get you to come on and let's hear you live tell some ghost stories. But for right now, he shared this one. In the middle of the ocean, far from land, would be just the last place you'd think you'd encounter a ghost. Yeah, for sure. But that is exactly what happened, as told to me by people who experienced this encounter and were changed by it for the rest of their lives. Whoa. The storm's increase in intensity had taken my aunt and uncle by surprise. They had been cruising down the coast of Mexico when they suddenly became enveloped in howling winds and mountainous waves. Uncle Alfred was a tough old guy who gave us all fits. I got some relatives like that. I think we all do, right? He should have had a captain and crew, but he was much too macho to admit he'd ever need help with anything, let alone his beloved boat. My long suffering Aunt Virginia adored him and trusted him implicitly, but this time she was truly terrified. The storm had become so intense that they could barely hear each other as they yelled to each other over the din of howling winds. Waves crashed over the boat, and at one point, Uncle Alfred even tied my Aunt Virginia to the cabinetry and then himself to the wheel. It didn't look good. Oh my goodness. Yeah, when you gotta tie somebody to the boat, it's not a good situation, y'all. They had been trying to decide whether to continue or to turn around, but either way seemed hopeless. And though their lovely boat was good sized at 85 feet and had all the comforts of home, a fireplace, what? A fireplace? And even a built in organ where my aunt loved to sit playing Hawaiian Love Call. They were being tossed about like a toy, and were both certain that any moment they would be dashed to pieces and lost to the dark waves that towered around them like mountains. Terrified, they clung to each other, knowing that the end was close. 50 years of marriage, married as sweethearts, just before Uncle Alfred shipped out as a paratrooper over Germany. 3 sons, a lifetime of memories, all about to come to a violent, horrible end. That's when she suddenly appeared to them. Standing firmly on the deck, unruffled by the storm, stood my grandmother, my Aunt Virginia's mother. She had been dead for some 20 years. Okay, so your dead mother in law has appeared on the boat. I would definitely think the end was near. Wow. So she had been dead some 20 years, but was standing there looking just as strong and commanding as she'd been in life. Virgie, what are you doing here? She yelled, Go home! In shock, they looked at each other and then, turning back, saw that as soon as she'd appeared, she was now gone, leaving only the howls of the wind in the night. As my aunt and uncle later recounted this story to our family, I asked my uncle, So what did you do then, Uncle Alfred? He looked at me and quite seriously said, When your dead mother in law tells you to turn the boat around, you turn the boat around. I'll say. He added that later that night, when they managed to once more reach home and dock, that they had collapsed into the car and drove slowly home in silence, rocked by the evening's events. All was pretty quiet until they both noticed my grandmother once more had joined them, sitting directly in the middle of the back seat where she always sat, arms crossed and across her chest, keeping an eye on them and blocking the rearview mirror. They oh my gosh. They both jumped and yelled simultaneously, only to turn and see that she had disappeared again. So she's not only on the boat, she is in the car making sure that you take your bottoms home. Okay, I get it. As a side note, I'd like to add to this story that my aunt and uncle, who were two of the least spiritual people you could ever meet, and call them cynical, would only scratch the surface. But if anyone else had shared a story like this with them, they'd have laughed themselves silly and teased them mercilessly for the rest of their lives. But this was different. They saw her. She came to them and saved them from the storm. It wasn't their time. My grandmother was half Sioux, born on the reservation in the 1890s. She was intense and as psychic as they come. One of her daughters, my mom, was a medium and could see the dead. She absolutely hated it. My cousin's daughter is a natural medium, and the dead are drawn to her. She hates it so much. I'm pretty intuitive and get a little psychic BS every now and then, but only because I listen to that inner voice. Wow. Well, it's weird, but I am part Sioux also. I'm like half Croatian, but still part Sioux on my dad's side. I didn't know. Are Sioux Indians more psychic than others? I don't know. Um, but wow, what a story. So yeah, they wouldn't have believed it if someone else had told them. But yeah, that's what I keep saying, y'all. When it happens to you, what you gonna say? What you gonna do? There it is. So that's how a lot of unbelievers become believers when you have an experience that you can't explain. So I guess our grandmother's talents have passed through the generations. But one thing we all share is knowing that she watches over us, and when in a tough spot, we shouldn't be surprised to find ourselves face to face with her imperious spirit, there to protect and guide us to safety. Well, somebody is definitely watching out for you. Thank you so much, Mr. James, for sending me this email. All right, the next one is by Kevin Wainscott. I got kidney failure in 2019. I did hemodialysis for almost 5 years. On January 4th this year, I got the call I've been waiting for. I was offered a kidney from a deceased 24-year-old male. My transplant hospital was 3 hours away, so after surgery and hospital stay, I lived in an extended stay hotel for about a month because of frequent clinic visits. Once I got home, I slept in a recliner for ease of getting up to use the bathroom. I have a chocolate lab female named Macy Ray. Oh, how cute, Macy Ray. Every night since I got home between the hours of 2 and 3 a.m., Macy Ray goes to the back door, growling, barking, and all ruffled up. I live 20 miles out of town, so I know it can't be a nosy person or prowler. Could it be my donor checking on me? For now, we'll never know. So, being that you live so far out, I don't know. Maybe he's going to make sure you take care of that organ, mister. That's the only thing I can think of too. We don't know how it works, y'all. We don't know if we're attached to our organs. We don't, what do we know? Nothing. Nothing. We're just here experiencing stuff and we don't know what to call it. So, there you go. Thank you for sending that in. Our next story is by Anna W. 10 years ago, my grandmother was in the hospital due to having a total knee replacement. The surgery went well. However, she needed to stay in longer than expected due to her O2 sats not staying up. Some background: the hospital is very old and was built in 1922. When additions were built, they continued onto the original hospital, and it still stood on the original grounds. I was 18 at the time and a nursing major. I was geeking out over the history of the hospital and envisioning my future career. We had just gotten news from the night shift nurse that my grandmother would be going home the next day. A short time later, I started to feel cold with a sharp pain in the center of my chest, and I was sweating. Oh, I thought it was an anxiety attack. I was focused on trying to make this attack go away. My grandma asked, "Who is that man with a top hat in here?" Oh no, we know what's coming, right? We know about the Hat Man. We've had many stories about the Hat Man. I don't think it's a good thing. I didn't respond to her. She spoke again, annoyed with me. "Well, he's gone now," I replied. "I can't talk right now," and told her what's going on. She looked at me and said, "I think we saw a ghost." I felt better almost instantly after she informed me that the man with the top hat was gone. I didn't say anything. The night went on without any issues, and Grandma was discharged the next afternoon. She told the nurse who discharged her about what we saw. The nurse said we must have seen Dr. Brown. He was the founding doctor of this hospital, and he still rounds on his patients. A lot of staff and patients see him. When I wheeled Grandma out of the hospital, there was a picture of Dr. Brown at the entrance. Grandma pointed at the picture and said, "That's the man in the top hat." P.S. During discharge, the nurse said she hadn't had any narcotics in almost a week. Okay, so I was thinking it was the Hat Man. Like, we know. Okay, so this was a different Hat Man. This was Dr. Brown. And I'm sure back in the day he did wear a top hat. Wow, that is a cool story, and I'm glad it wasn't, the other guy in the hat. Thank you, Anna W., for sending that in. Our next story comes from Not Applicable. Good evening from South Africa. Well, good evening to you, South Africa. I recently came across your channel, Real Life Ghost Stories from Nurses, and have really enjoyed them. Anyway, here are a couple of my own paranormal experiences from 15 years of house sitting. Oh, wow. Mrs. Smith's house. Mrs. Smith was an elderly lady who was widowed a few years prior to us meeting. She seems like your run of the mill sweet old lady, and her house seemed like any other old house in that specific area, except for one particular little detail. Her husband had passed away in the same bedroom and bed that I was going to be sleeping in. Bedroom? Okay, I do that. But bed? No. No way, buddy. Anyway, the activity started almost immediately after the old lady left. We would hear things dropping on the wooden floor in one of the rooms, and when we'd go in to see what it was, there wasn't anything on the floor. Then we started seeing them vivid, full body apparitions. Yeah, that's when you stop house sitting. The first was of a rustic looking guy looking back at me in the ensuite bathroom mirror. He just stared at me while in bed. This was ongoing for the duration of the house sitting job, which was about 2 weeks. The second was something that had mimicked me. It was early and I was getting ready for school. While we were running around getting ready for the day, I heard my mom talking to someone but getting no reply. So I called out back to her, thinking that she was trying to get my attention for some reason, only to have her run into the room and yell at me for trying to scare her. I, of course, had no clue what she's talking about. It wasn't me. She had walked into the study and saw me sitting by the desk with my back turned toward the door where my mom was standing. Turns out that the talking I heard had been my mom complaining to me for sitting around while we were running late. Then, when I called back to her, she looked toward the direction where I was and back at the chair, but it was empty. Yeah, that's always the dead giveaway. No pun intended. Then, as we were freaking out about what had just happened, we heard a loud bang. It sounded like the crack of a bullet breaking the sound barrier. And just as that happened, all of the electricity went off and the whole house was black. We tried to stumble through the house to the inside garage door and to find the flip the trip switch. But as soon as we got to the door leading into the garage from the kitchen, the smell of boiled eggs was so strong that it took the wind out of your lungs. We ran out of the house and decided to ignore what we just encountered. Had a few more what WTF moments in that place after that, but that's for another email. Thank you for your time. Oh, wow. Well, thank you, not applicable. I don't know why I have trouble saying that. Yeah, there's something, the smell of, to me, sulfur smells like boiled eggs. And that's probably what it was, is like a sulfur. And that's not good. Usually that is some kind of demonic activity if you didn't know. So, yeah, stay away from sulfur. And, boiled eggs, maybe if, you know. All right, so that is all I have for you today. I have several more lengthy emails and some stories that I want to share with you. Some of them are just absolutely great, as these were. So keep sending them in, whether excuse me, whether by comments or by email. Now, if you like true ghost stories and you like hospital ghost stories or really any kind of ghost stories, me and Scully are here for you. So hit that like and subscribe, and I will see you later. In the meantime, y'all, just stay spooky, okay? Bye bye.